Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you should be just go to the iPad, just go to the website. Click on
Okay, this is Jeff Bobo with Kingsport Times News. We're live streaming the Hawkins County Board of Education's meeting, which is being conducted by Zoom. You can see Director of Schools Matt Hickson is to the far left, Board Chairman Chris Christian in the center, and Board Member
3.
Kathy Trent
C is in cat.
is to the right.
A capital V is in Victor.
I think I got that right. Might have got her name wrong. We got a lot going on at the same time. But, they're fixing to get started, so I'll shut up.
There you go. Start video. Start audio. Start video. Yes, internet audio. Okay, here's. I've got to find it on here. I still don't see you. No, that's just your name of the machine. I asked you right then, but you want to start the video. He said, okay.
Okay, looks like they're running just a little bit behind on the Hawkins County Board of Education meeting. Was supposed to start at 6, and sounds like he's talking to somebody through how to do it here.
Turn the volume up on the right hand side of your iPad.
But we'll just hang in there. There's Miss Charles just got on. You can see in the upper right hand corner. Board member Bob Hawkins is at the top on the left. Board member Debbie Shedden is second from the left. Board member Kathy Craddock is second from the right, and board member Miss Charles. Whoa, Miss Charles just popped up.
Now say something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay. Now we can hear you. Now we can see you. You're moving around there. So set your iPad down there somewhere stationary.
Sorry, guys. I was trying.
I will be unmuting you whenever they do the votes. They're going to do a roll call vote, and I will unmute you when you do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Can everybody hear okay?
I think we're ready.
We will now call the Hawkins County Board of Education meeting to order, this being May the 7th, 2020 at approximately 6:08. Welcome board members by the technology that we have. Hope everybody's doing well. Here we are again. What is this, our third meeting?
Can you all give us a thumbs up? You can hear okay?
Can everyone hear? Thank you. Let's get started. Let's all take a moment and stand and have a moment of silence, and let's consider our country and where we're at today.
Stand up.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Hickson will lead us in the pledge.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now, if you will read the conflict of interest statement, please.
Those of you that have a personal conflict of interest and or an indirect conflict of interest, do you acknowledge these conflicts of interest for all purposes and actions of this meeting?
I do. Did we get a record of everybody? Okay, Jackie's got her done,
See, Jackie, I saw some heads nod, but we'll probably put that again.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let the record reflect that all bid on both conflicts.
Thank you. We have no public comments. What is before the board for approval of minutes from the April 6, 2020 board meeting?
So moved.
Okay. Danny?
I'll second if Jackie's making the motion.
Okay, Jackie's.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Here now.
Okay.
You make
I
the
did.
motion,
Yes.
and Debbie will second.
Correct.
Any further discussion? With none, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Carl,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Stebbins,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is kind of still getting used to this.
Chris,
Yes.
I'm going to leave their mics on. So if you all can just minimize any moving around or anything, I'm going to leave your all's mics on because it's hard for me to find you on the screen here to turn on and turn off. So only the board members' mics are on.
Okay. Next on our agenda is approval of the outline and format of our agenda tonight.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Any further discussion? If none, Jennifer, call the roll.
Trent,
Yes.
Stebbins,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
And now this brings us to recognitions, Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Before I get into recognition, would the board allow me to make a statement regarding graduation?
Yes.
First of all, I think just food for thought for our English teachers. If you ever want to start students on a persuasive essay topic, graduation would be a good topic to do so. I've received many kind and affirmative emails thanking the staff for prioritizing celebration for Hawkins County 2020 seniors. We have also received several concerns. We're in the middle of addressing these concerns, most notably by working through our student board representatives. A virtual meeting will be held Monday for additional input from them as representatives of their classes represented here on the board. No plan is perfect, especially one that differs from tradition. Graduation is one of the most cherished traditions one remembers for his or her life. This year, we know one thing for certain: graduation, much like anything in normal life, will be much different. I have replied to every single email sent directly to me, and my staff has as well. There are strong feelings on either side of this event and how it's being planned. We have tried to create a celebration worthy of our seniors' efforts. One thing discussed as we planned was a desire to do something special now, while all seniors are still here and available to do so. We have walked a very fine line, however, between our desire to keep students and staff safe, as well as provide an opportunity for seniors to have an event with their closest family members and provide an edited video to preserve these memories for them in the future. As we progress through the first part of next week, I will update all of you, as well as all of the staff, parents, and students affected with proposed changes to the procedures or dates for each of our school sites. Any questions or comments on that before I move on to recognitions?
I would like to thank the director of schools and his staff for being open to the suggestions of the students. Because this is a very special time for them and a difficult time. When we look back to our graduation, which is a normal graduation, 20 years from now, when the class of 2020 says, someone asks, when did you graduate? They're going to say, well, this is when the virus hit. It won't be a year. It's always going to be, they're going to be marked by this. So I want to thank our director and his staff for being considerate and reaching out for suggestions from our students. So thank you.
Moving on to recognitions, I do know that Ms. Debbie Shedden, board member, has a couple of recognitions she'd like to make at this time. So if she's ready, I'd like to turn it over to her.
Sure. I've got a couple of groups that I would like to recognize. First off, our teachers. Tuesday was Teacher Appreciation Day, and certainly this has been a very different day for them as they're not face to face with their students. But our teachers in Hawkins County that I have observed have been absolutely amazing, from Zoom meetings to helping hand out lunches, to showing up at schools and doing drive-through, handing out learning packets. They have gone above and beyond the call of duty. And I would like to say that we appreciate them very, very much for all of their efforts and all that they have brought to the table, especially during these uncertain times. So thank you, teachers. The next group I've got is nurses. Yesterday was National School Nurse Appreciation Day. And I did a little research. This goes back to 1972. That's when they first started Nurse Appreciation Day. And how apropos the theme for them this year is supporting students in times of crisis. So with that theme, I think it's only appropriate that we recognize the school nurses that we've got in our system, because they all play an integral role in the health of our students, regardless of whether they're in school or not. So we want to definitely thank them for all that they do to support our staff and our students every day. The other group I'd like to recognize is Mandy Kenner and her lunch crew. They are, I don't know if any of you are aware, but they are closing in on serving 50,000 lunches during this time of closure. And I think that's an amazing and awesome number. And for all of her staff and for her for spearheading this, and for all of our teachers and support staff that have shown up to give students that meal and carry it over into something for the next day for breakfast, I think we can applaud them, because I know just from my own grandchildren, that's the high point of their day, is when they get to go by and they actually get to see a teacher and they get that lunch, and then my daughter has brought it home and they have a picnic out in their front yard with the lunch. So I think she has done an absolutely amazing job, and I would definitely like to thank her and recognize her and all of her staff, as I know I'm speaking for the board on this. The other group that I think Director Hickson has something he's going to say on this, but our student board representatives that have shared their time with us this year. It's kind of a different recognition. Usually we're there and we talk about them and we give them a plaque, but I would like to recognize the three of them for their time that they've so graciously shared with us this year. and for the input that they have given us on several different topics and updates about their school. So for all of these people, I think we can honestly all how much we appreciate them and all of the efforts they all do to collaborate together to provide what Hawkins County School is.
Well, I said it, I couldn't have said it better. I think that all of those groups are especially deserving at this time of year and in any regular school year, but much more so in light of what we're dealing with the school closure and the coronavirus. I couldn't, I put it in several emails this week. I just am blessed to work alongside such hard-working and caring individuals, from our teachers to our custodians to our maintenance group to our transportation members, our teachers, our principals, you name it. There isn't a single person I've run across that wouldn't do anything and everything possible to support students in this district, and I appreciate your comments. You did allude to the student board reps. I did have an update on that. We were able to meet with 2 of the 3. I'm meeting with Anna early next week, but I did meet with Cooper and gave him his plaque, and Tyler and gave him his plaque, and we were able to take a picture to commemorate their service on the board. I wish, as with our other seniors, that they would have had a traditional end to the school year and an opportunity to fulfill the last couple of months of their meetings with us. I greatly appreciate their participation this year and their professionalism as they gave reports to the board and updated the board on what's happening, not only with their school sites, but across the school system with students their age and with their peers. So kudos to them. They all have bright futures, and I told Tyler today that he needs to keep us, he and Cooper and Anna need to keep us all updated on what they're doing in the future, because they're going to be doing some great things, no doubt about it. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Now that brings us to delegations.
Oh, I do have something real positive. Sorry.
Let's hear it.
This is worth waiting for right here.
Okay.
So Melissa went over to the Family Resource Center to get some cash that was donated, and April Couch shared this message with her, and I'm going to read this note and hold it up for everybody. There was $100 cash left in a little envelope folded up, and it was from a 7-year-old, and she wrote the following note. My name is Lily. I'm 7 years old. I would like you to have this. Love, Lily. And it was 5 $20 bills. So I figured we could all use a real positive shot in the arm, and that's one of the better ones I've seen. So I did want to share that. Thanks, Lily.
Yeah, glad we did look at that flag. Now that's it.
Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Delegations, HCEA representative, representative from the Education Committee of the Hawkins County Commission. Present, any reports at this time? No reports at this time. That brings us to the Director of Schools report.
Yes, Mr. Christian, we have first on the list underneath the Director of Schools report the list of tenured candidates that have been recommended for tenure and before you and the board this evening to consider granting tenure. They have met all of the requirements. They have been looked at very, very closely, not only this year, but in their past service to Hawkins County, and we do fully recommend the list before you.
Would it be possible to pull up the policy and state law pertaining to the, please?
We weren't leaving around the video.
Yeah,
I can't get mine done, but.
Of course, that should not necessarily be people's fault for anything other than me.
I know it's me when it comes to technology.
But I can't, I spend, and I tell you one thing, it'd go out the window if it was up to me, because I'd blow it off the map.
5.117. Board policy 5.117, to attain tenure status, a teacher must meet tenure eligibility requirements, be renewed and recommended by the director of schools, and receive a majority vote of the board. Tenure eligibility. Teachers that meet the following requirements are eligible for tenure. 1. Has a degree from an approved four-year college or any career and technical teacher who has the equivalent amount of training established and is licensed by the State Board of Education. 2. Hold a valid teacher license issued by the State Board of Education based on training covering the subjects or grades taught. 3. Has completed a probationary period of 5 school years or not less than 45 months within the last 7-year period, the last 2 years being employed in a regular teaching position rather than an interim teaching position, and has received evaluations demonstrating an overall performance effectiveness level of above expectations or significantly above expectations as provided in the evaluation guidelines adopted by the State Board of Education during the last 2 years of the probationary period. Once a teacher is eligible for tenure, he or she shall be either recommended by the director of schools for tenure or non-renewed status. If tenure is denied by the board, the teacher shall be dismissed. The following additional guidelines shall apply. The director of schools will recommend persons eligible for tenure at a board meeting in ample time to provide notice of non-renewal to each teacher not recommended for tenure within 5 business days following the last instructional day for the school year. 2. The decision to grant tenure is solely with the discretion of the board. Only those teachers who receive a majority vote of the membership of the board will be granted tenure. 3. A teacher who is eligible for tenure but tenure is denied by the board shall not be rehired beyond the current contract year. Teachers returning to employment. Second page, a teacher who has acquired tenure status in the school system and later resigns shall serve a 2-year probationary period upon reemployment unless the probationary period is waived by the board upon request of the director of schools. Upon completion of the 2-year period, the teacher shall either be recommended by the director of schools for tenure or non-renewed. If tenure is denied by the board, the teacher shall be dismissed. Teacher transferring from another school system. A tenured or non-tenured teacher with 5 or more years of prior service that transfers from another school system to begin employment in the Hawkins County school system shall serve the regular probationary period. The board, upon the recommendation of the director of schools, may waive the probationary period and grant tenure status or shorten the probationary period. If a non-tenured teacher with fewer than 5 years of service transfers from another school system, such teacher shall not be eligible for tenure status until the teacher has served at least 5 years in service in both school systems is counted. All tenure decisions made under this section are subject to the requirements concerning overall teacher performance effectiveness levels. Teachers returning to probationary status. Any tenured teacher who receives 2 consecutive years of evaluations demonstrating an overall performance effectiveness level of below expectations or significantly below expectations shall be returned to probationary status by the director of schools until the teacher has received 2 consecutive years of evaluations demonstrating an overall performance effectiveness level of above expectations or significantly above expectations. When a teacher who has returned to probationary status has received 2 consecutive years of evaluations demonstrating an overall performance effectiveness level of above expectations or significantly above expectations, the teacher is again eligible for tenure and shall be either recommended by the director of schools for tenure or non-renewed, provided, however, that the teacher shall be dismissed if tenure is denied by the board. This section does not apply to teachers who acquired tenure prior to July 1, 2011.
Thank you. Just wanted to get that read into record. Granting tenure is the responsibility of the Board of Education as a recommendation from the Director of Schools. We have some fantastic teachers in our system, and I think being a teacher, getting tenure is a milestone, is it not?
It really is. You lose a lot of your fear that children just stay sensitized. And it's a process too.
But it's more difficult to get now than it was, say, when you were teaching.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody just.
Yes.
Okay.
That was a long time ago.
All right. So, it's before the board, approval to grant tenure to the following certificated personnel for 2019-2020.
I'll make a motion that we
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? With none, call the roll.
Charles,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yeah.
Barkins,
Yes.
Shelton,
Yes.
Trent.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to those teachers. Let's keep up the good work.
Mr. Chris, I think a number of those teachers are watching this evening because they knew their names were going to be on there. So I would also like to extend a congratulations to them. It's not easy, as you mentioned, to gain tenure. This year was a little bit unique because their school year was shortened as far as their direct instruction, but many of them, and I could safely say everybody on this list continued to work well beyond the March 20th date to support students in the instruction. So,
Can we read their names?
absolutely, yep.
Oh, well.
Candace Land, Bulls Gap School. Sandra Galloway, Bulls Gap School. Angela Black, Cherokee High School. Dewey Ferguson, Cherokee High School. Cody Helms, Cherokee High School. Jeff Hobbs, Cherokee High School. Rhonda Hendrick, Cherokee High School. Josh Bearden, Church Hill Middle School. Carrie Muncie, Joseph Rogers Primary School. Nicole Vaughn, Morrisburg Elementary. Alyssa Horton, Burgoynesville Elementary. Jessica Hurd, Burgoynesville Elementary. Brenda Miller, Burgoynesville Middle. Isaiah Spivey, Burgoynesville Middle. Rachel Andes, Volunteer High. Justin Barton, Volunteer High. Kevin Hilton, Volunteer High. And Tammy Turner, Volunteer High.
Thank you. Congratulations again. That brings us to B, consent agenda. Approval to suspend policy 5.310 for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Just for clarification, I am only looking to edit line 4 with the following, and I will read what line 4 and line 5 currently state right now. The first 5 years, let me start over. The first 5 days of any unused vacation days will be rolled over to the next fiscal year's vacation day total. And we are talking about staff members who are employed on a 12-month basis within Hawkins County. Due to the COVID closure, many systems are giving their employees that meet this criteria, again, 12-month employees that have and earn vacation leave during the course of any regular school year, the ability to roll over additional days. My recommendation, should the board approve, would be to allow for up to 10 days of unused vacation days can be rolled over to the next fiscal year's vacation day total for the 1920 school year only. So this would only be until June 30th, effective for rollover next school year. The policy would then revert to as written and as approved on February 13th of 2000.
Any questions? Any discussion? No discussion? Ms. Jennifer, call the roll, please. Oh. Sorry, I thought that was, sorry, we need a motion.
Make that motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
Bob got it. Second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Trent,
Yes.
Shedden,
Yes.
Larkin,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
I apologize for that. I was listening to Matt and just got lost. Approval, number 2, approval of policy on first reading, second and final reading waived. Policy 5.3051 FFCRA leave.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
I would like to just say that this is FFCRA is pertinent to the Family Medical Leave Act, but it takes into consideration the current coronavirus response, which it is the Families First Corona Response Act, and it is a recommended board policy to take and put into motion from legal counsel and from TSBA pertinent to the coronavirus epidemic.
And how long will this be waived?
Well, I would say that it would need to stay on the books until we're no longer dealing with any ramifications coming from the illness. So that could be years to come, because anything tied to a leave as a result of this illness or subsequent to this illness probably would be affected.
When we would get notification from,
TSBA and or staff, either one.
okay,
We're gonna continue to add sicknesses to it all the time. We end up with a whole volume of policy on
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think that the thought here is that with the Family Medical Leave Act and other leaves pertinent to long or more serious illnesses, there's a potential for those to be listed in the future. But hopefully, we don't deal with these pandemics and things that require us to shut down and affect our employees and our students as we have seen with this. So,
But you know, the problem with it is it creates a mindset. I mean, we've never experienced anything like this in the whole history of the United States of America at any point in time. To shut down everything because somebody got sick. And I guarantee the government hasn't saved one life. They really haven't. They probably killed more than they're saving. And the problem, you know, there's a whole lot of problems with that because looking at the coronavirus itself, there's just 20 strains, I think. And the common cold is one of them.
yeah. Well, as this board policy is written, it's set to expire, or at least the FFCRA portion of the Medical Leave Act is set to expire December 31st, 2020. What we've been told is that it could be extended, it could go by the wayside, it could expire. It just depends on the extent of the effects of this illness.
but we can revisit this in these,
Correct.
if needed.
If need be, if there's nothing else done to it as written right now, if you approve it right now, it would sunset December 31st, 2020.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Jones, call the roll.
Charles,
Yes.
Whoa.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Larkin,
Yes.
Shedden.
Yes.
Thank you. Number 3, approval of textbook adoption for the 2020 through 2026 school year for English language arts.
I make a motion that we accept that.
We have a motion,
I'll second.
we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
If no one else jumps in there, I would like to thank Board Member Trent for coming by one of our monthly principal meetings when we were debating the staff selections for ELA and what they were prioritizing and looking over these curriculums. As you are all aware, we are required to adopt textbooks for our curriculum that we run through K-12. And this is the process that we are utilizing for our ELA adoption to cover through 2026.
In adopting these books, were they presented to the public, or is that, I think
They were fitting strategic places, like we were here on one meeting in the kindergarten ones back in the back.
well,
We typically don't get much public to come in and look at them, but it is a requirement that we set that aside for.
okay, I'm just making sure we look at
That
this.
was at the board meeting, and I went back there and looked at that.
The process.
I should have said it.
I mean, at least I'd like to see what it incorporates.
So, we have the motion, we have the second, is there any further discussion? If not, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Trent,
Yes.
Stebbins,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Number 4, approval of co-op agreements for athletics for the 2020-21 school year.
I wanted to ask a question about this.
The way you
Can I do that?
Yeah. You gotta have a motion.
Oh, you gotta have a motion first. Sorry.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman,
We have a motion.
for approval. I'm sorry.
We have a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
There you go.
Now I can ask this
Now you can
question.
ask
But
questions.
I gotta say these.
Yeah,
We
I like the
have a
idea.
motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. I like the idea of all this on here. But do we have to have coaches for those? And like swimming, what are they gonna do? I realize you can use the pool at Rogersville.
They go to the Kingsport.
They go to the Kingsport pool. Okay, what about wrestling? I know we have that. Okay, and at the middle school, bowling is just like a museum and did all that. You know, he just did really good. So we already have coaches set up for this. Okay, that was my question, and I'm glad I said it.
If we knew that question was gonna be so easy, we would have to ask.
Exactly. You all thought I was gonna do something bad, but no, I just really wanted to know that far. I'm gonna go to this.
With no further discussion, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll, please.
Charles,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Stebbins,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Item C on the consent agenda, approval of purchases over $5,000.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve that.
We have a motion.
Second.
Jackie, Ms. Jackie's got the second. Any further debate? More discussion?
I just want to make a quick comment. We are going to have some of the cleanest, most shiny school site locations when and if we ever return back to school because of this down. I guarantee that, and that's reflected in the wax and strip that you see in front of us. We're going to be well waxed.
I thought that was boilerplate.
That's a whole lot, yeah.
With no further discussion, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Trent,
Yes.
Stebbins,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to unfinished business. A, Hawkins County Schools cost analysis from Dr. Keith Brewer. Everybody's familiar with the history, and we have set up multiple timelines to meet with Mr. Brewer, with the community, the students, and citizens of this county to go over that. But unfortunately, we're not in a position where we can effectively do that. And if I may, board members that are by video, I apologize. Please try to follow along. I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. I would like to present a motion before this board for your consideration tonight, and I will read now. Please let me finish, and then we can discuss any issues or misunderstandings or clarifications. Considering what we as citizens, students, parents, and taxpayers of Hawkins County have been dealing with over the last few months and continue to have the daily uncertainty of future events, I felt compelled to address an issue that has been the topic of many discussions over the years. That topic is the future and direction of this school system. As this topic is not one we take lightly, it is one that must be addressed leading up to this point. We, as a board, have struggled as to finding the proper path to follow that is fair and equitable to all current and future stakeholders. With that, I'm proposing for consideration by this board a roadmap, if you will, to be a guide for our students, parents, employees, and system in moving forward. Being part of this process for the past 7 years, there has been a flood of information presented, interpreted, agreed upon, and disagreed upon, to the point where we, as a board, to be as fair and open with the people of Hawkins County, asked an unbiased outside consultant to look at our school system's needs economically as to give us direction to ensure financial stability and equity for Hawkins County schools moving forward. The information gathered by our consultant exposed other possibilities that our system needs to evaluate during the next school year. Those issues are bus routing and district zoning. Therefore, I put before this board for consideration, A, during the course of the 2020-21 school year, close Keplar and McPheeters Bend elementary schools at the end of the 2020-2021 school year if student numbers do not rise to current BEP funding requirements. Number 2, perform a boundary study to determine shortest routes for our students. This may affect zoning. This study is to be done with the assistance of an outside contractor as well as updated software and logistics for Hawkins County school transportation. Number 3, students from Keplar may request to attend Rogersville, Churchill, or McPheeters Bend if numbers meet BEP funding minimums. Otherwise, they will attend JRP, Hawkins Elementary School, or RMS. Number 4, McPheeters Bend students will attend Churchill Elementary unless other determinations are made over the course of the 2021 school year with the busing and zoning study. Number 5, establish parent meetings with all affected students in the spring of 2021. B, moving forward with clear direction. Any school that should fall below the BEP funding requirements will be considered for closure, with procedures to be developed by the administration and board. C, reference to Hawkins County Board Policy 1.8011, the board authorizes the director of schools to close schools in the event of hazardous weather, a public health emergency, or any other emergency which presents a threat to the safety of students, staff members, or school property. Subject to this policy, the board reserves the right to close any school in the event of any safety hazard that may arise at any time. That is the body of my motion, and I close with, if approved by this board, it will then be sent to the Hawkins County Commission for consideration due to the Q-Scout lines. Questions, comments? We do this before the board.
Chris?
Yes.
A, number 2,
Yeah.
can we take that out of the Kepler and McPheeters Bend closure and move it down to like D or something? Because it really doesn't.
Number 2, perform a boundary study
Yes,
to
yes,
determine.
because we want that no matter what. That one specific thing, we want that zoning
Just a
to
second.
happen.
You want it for the entire county school system?
Yes, that's
That's
what we were
my
talking
intent.
about. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's my intent. Let me clarify. Number 2, that's a zoning and routing study of the entire county.
Point of order, Chairman. You need to say. You made the motion. You made a motion.
Need to
You gotta
second.
have a second before you discuss it.
Can I make the motion?
You
Yeah.
did. You just read it.
That was your motion.
Well, sure you can. You can do all buildings in the same way.
Used to. Okay.
Yourself out.
Without
Point of order, Mr. Hicks is correct. I did make the motion. We need a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. Now, to answer the question, Ms. Trent asked that number 2 be removed and added as item
D. Would that be okay?
perform a boundary study to determine shortest routes for our students. This may affect zoning. But we will have to,
That is part of the procedure.
Well, it's not really, but
what if,
are you going to ask, this is another question, Vicky.
Go ahead, Mark.
Are you going to say, okay, are we gonna vote on A? We're gonna vote on B? Are we gonna vote on C?
it was
Or are we gonna vote
presented,
on D?
it was presented as the whole thing.
It's the whole
But
thing.
I'll be happy to amend number 2 and add verbiage where it says the entire system. Or move it to D.
So is your concern, Trent, that the zoning and routing study be performed system-wide?
Well, there's things that I can vote yes on, that I agree with.
Correct.
But there's things that I'm not, comfortable voting yes on.
I understand.
So that's why I'm saying, can you vote, if we move 2 down to D, and then vote A, for B, for C, and we've covered everything, D would be the thing. But I think that Kepler and McPheeters Bend should be separate, even though we're gonna basically do the bus routing, the boundary study for the whole county.
What I would propose, and I'm not trying to get in the mix, but if pertinent to Ms. Trent's question, I would propose that the motion as made is the entirety. And if, for whatever reason, there needs to be additional motions made to make sure that we account for those concerns, we make a new motion afterward.
Well, you can always amend it.
Yeah,
You can amend this motion.
yeah. And we have to vote on the amendment first.
Right. Before you vote on the original.
So you want to make the amendment motion.
Yes. Can I make the amendment motion? Okay.
Yeah.
So the
Whatever your
motion
The
is,
two-parter there that we vote, that we move A2 down to D, that's a separate motion. And then we vote on each one, A, B, C, and D. Is that okay?
that's the motion. Board, do you understand? I know you don't have it in front of you. But what it would be is, I'm going to read it. I've got A, 1 through 5, B, and C. And number 2, under A, it says perform boundary study to determine shortest routes for our students. This may affect zoning. This study is to be done with the assistance of an outside contractor, as well as updated software and logistics for Hawkins County School Transportation. Ms. Trent wants to take that out of A, make it D. And the other part of her motion is to vote on A, B, C, and D separately.
I make the motion, somebody could have seconded the amendment.
So we need a second for that. I don't know if I can make a statement. You can do that. But it's not even you can.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second you.
Okay, we have a second. Board members, we have a second on the amendment. Do you have any questions? Okay. You
I have a
want to take
question, Chris. Chris, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Who do you have in mind to do the routing study, the boundary study, and what kind of cost, what kind of money are we talking about? It's a little hard to make a decision on that and committing ourselves to spending dollars without knowing how much we're talking about. Is there a group that does that, or?
Yes, and I'm going to defer to Mr. Dixon.
Mr. Larkins, I believe a couple of years ago, prior to Steve leaving or right after Mr. Starnes left, I think you were in negotiations, potentially in receiving bids for such a study, and one of the companies was Traversa. And that company has been reached out to again just to see if we can get some updated pricing for examining our routes, GPS software on our buses to make sure that we're running efficiently and that the students are receiving the shortest routes to and from school. That cost, roughly speaking, and Mr. Benavides is giving me exact quotes for our budget meeting next week. Those exact numbers are forthcoming, but I would tell you that the first year I think is around 18,000. It drops by a couple thousand the second year and another 1,000 or 1,500 the third year out because of implementation of the software on some of the older buses and so forth. That first year is a little bit higher, but you're roughly looking at no more than 18,000 for that first year.
Is that not something that you and your staff can do?
Well, the benefit of having a company like Traversa working with us is that we need to update our maps and digitize our system here at the transportation center anyway, and that's part of what they would roll into this study. So it would be entirely beneficial to the school system. Otherwise, I would have staff take that burden on. But if the board would approve us looking at that, it would benefit us in the long run to have updated maps to be able to track our busing in case there's accidents or we can't locate one or get a hold of a bus driver. We can know at any point where those buses are with this software that comes with this company. Or a like company. I'm not suggesting we go with this company. It was just one that you guys negotiated with prior to my arrival.
I'm assuming we'd bid it out just like any other service since it's over $10,000.
Unless it's a piggybackable bid or it meets those requirements, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have a motion to the amendment and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Yes.
I sent you a snapshot. Those of you that are working virtually, I did send you a snapshot to your text of the motion that Mr. Christian read.
Chris, can you give us a second to look at that?
Yeah, take your time.
Hopefully you're able to read it. I can take another picture if you want. Just let me know.
Okay.
We're not committing to spend any money on anything, to buy anything. That'll have to come up later on once we get into the process of the coming school year of evaluating where we are and everything else with the system. We're just trying to get something down now so we don't end up next January trying to figure out what we're going to do. I mean, I think that we're not committing to spend any money right now. By this motion at all.
No,
that would be something. I mean, as far as the study is done, whatever that's going to cost, we'll have to figure that out later on because we don't know.
That's why I suggested rolling that into the budget meeting for next year, and that's next week. And I should have those bids back by then.
Let's take a 5-minute break while
They look at it.
Okay?
And Bob, what I'm suggesting there is just that we take that number 2 out and make it an individual. So we'll be voting on it separate from A. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay. See if it's in a text. It might be a text instead of a.
Okay, while we're sitting here during their break, I can summarize for folks that weren't here for the beginning of the meeting. Mr. Hickson addressed the graduation situation. You may recall it, I think it was earlier this week, or it may have been last week. It's hard to tell anymore, it's so busy, but recently he issued a plan for graduation that involved groups of 4 guests and students, and the student going through the gym. I don't know, if you are familiar with the situation, you know what his plan was, and then other groups would be in the car waiting. It was a non-traditional graduation, but kind of suited for social distancing. And he mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that there was quite a bit of response to that, and so they're having a meeting on Monday with student council and some other leadership in central office, and apparently they're going to revamp their graduation plans. So the report earlier this week on the graduation plans, I'm pretty sure that's going to be withdrawn and changed, and it's going to be something more traditional probably. But they're in a break right now. Actually, surprise, surprise, I didn't see this coming. They're fixing to vote on whether or not to close Keplar and McPheeters Bend. They're on a 5-minute break right now as board members wanted to take a minute to read the motion. If you're just joining me, we're live streaming the Zoom video of the Hawkins County Board of Education meeting. They're in a break right now. They're discussing potentially closing McPheeters Bend and Keplar. There's some other issues about doing a school bus route study, and it's the cost of that. And the motion is several parts: the closing of the schools, the rerouting, and some other stuff. So there was an amendment to vote on each of those issues separately, and the closing, the busing, rerouting study, and there was one other which escaped me right now. But anyway, so they're on a break right now to read the motion and I guess go to the bathroom, and they'll be coming back here directly. And if you missed the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Hickson addressed graduation. Apparently there was some backlash on the plan that was released earlier this week, and it's kind of complicated to explain his plan, but it was non-traditional. It was, for social distancing. There was going to be groups of the graduate student and 4 guests would be in line, separated in the gym, moving closer to the stage to get their diploma, and then other groups will be in their car.
Board, have you had an opportunity to
Okay,
review the document?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay, we do have a motion on the amendment, and we do have a second. If no further discussion, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll. Is everybody sure what the amendment is? Ms. Jennifer,
Mr. Chair, before we take a vote on that, I'd like to include an amendment to it. There's something that in the event that one of these schools suffered a catastrophic event, such as a major repair I would not want us to be bound to waiting to the end of the 2021 school year to have to vacate property rather than spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to comply with what we just voted on. I would like to add an amendment that if in the event that we suffered a catastrophic event at one of these 2 schools, that we would proceed with closure of them and transfer of those students rather than making major repairs to these facilities and spending lots of money in the event of a closure.
Mr. Larkin, if I may, under C, it says, after reference to policy 1.8011, it says, subject to this policy, the board reserves the right to close any school in the event of any safety hazard that may arise at any time.
Yeah, that's in our policy. I just don't want to be handcuffed into something that we can't do later on, and making sure that we still have that ability to go back and make those decisions in the event, hopefully, that doesn't happen. But in the event something happened, we still have that ability to close schools immediately and seek other alternatives.
Mr. Larkin, what verbiage would you like to be put in there to clarify the policy?
Let me just say this. If everybody's comfortable with the current wording of the policy, I won't do an amendment at all because I am comfortable with it. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Well, I think it's pretty much a given that if something catastrophic happened to any of our schools,
Right.
we have to do something with the students. I mean, you know, so I think that's a given. I mean, we could potentially have one burnt. We've had them burned before.
Exactly.
You know,
We could
so,
have a
I mean,
sewer plant go out, and I just wouldn't want to lock ourselves into having to spend money to bring it up to speed just to finish out what we had voted on tonight. But you're right. We do have the ability to do that at any time, and I just, without any misunderstanding, if everybody's on the same page, I'm good with as it is. I didn't really understand why we're moving the boundary study out of the original proposal, but I don't see it does any harm to move it down. I'm kind of confused a little bit
I am too.
while we're doing that.
You want me to answer, please? I just really think that that includes the whole county. We're doing the amendment that would be, when we do the bus routing, it's for the entire county, not
Okay.
just those schools.
Why are we moving it then?
What part are we moving? Just
Why are
number
we
2.
moving it, and are we voting on it separately?
Yes. When we vote again, my amendment is that when we vote on this, the original motion, we vote A separate, B separate, C separate, and then D would be A2. That they would all be separate.
So we're just voting on A? A1 is all we're voting on?
No.
A1, 3, 4, and 5.
And then B, C, and D if the amendment passes.
Why would it be a problem to move that? I don't understand why it would be a problem to just move it down to D and vote on each of those sections, A, B, C, and D separate.
I don't know that it is a problem. I just didn't understand why we were moving it if we're going to vote on it anyway.
Because it deals with the entire county. And up there, it would mean that it was just dealing with Kepler and McPheeters Bend. That we want to do, or I want to do, if we're doing busing, I think that in zoning, we need to do that for the entire county at one time.
Okay. We have a motion? Mr. Larkin, to clarify, you did withdraw your amendment.
I did.
Thank you.
I did. Thank you. Yes, sir.
We do have an amendment motion and a second. And with no further discussion, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Carl,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Shedden,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Okay, the amendment passes.
Therefore, now you like to vote on A, B, C, and D. It's separate.
Right. So now, board, it's before the board to vote on A1, 3, 4, and 5. And if need be, I can read those aloud if you need me to.
We got it.
Yeah, got it.
We got it.
So, we need a motion.
All we gotta do is vote on it. The motion's already been made.
Yes.
Amendment to that.
Okay,
motion.
all right.
All we have to do is vote on A, B, C, and D.
Okay. A1, 2, A1, 3, 4, and 5. Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Trent, No. Shedden,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Motion passes. B, moving forward with clear direction, any school that should fall below the BEP funding requirements will be considered for closure with procedures to be developed by the administration and board. Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Charles,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Shedden,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Item C, reference Hawkins County Board Policy 1.8011, the board authorizes the director of schools to close schools in the event of hazardous weather, a public health emergency, or any other emergency which presents a threat to the safety of students, staff members, or school property. Subject to this policy, the board reserves the right to close any school in the event of any safety hazards that may arise at any time. Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Trent,
Yes.
Shedden,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
and Charles.
Yes.
Item D, perform a boundary study to determine shortest routes for our students. This may affect zoning. This study is to be done with the assistance of an outside contractor as well as updated software and logistics for Hawkins County School Transportation. I need to make a clarification. In Ms. Trent's amendment, the verbiage was added, Ms. Jennifer, to include the verbiage to include the entire system. Jennifer, you have notes of that. Can you read that back for us, please?
Perform a boundary study to determine shortest route for Hawkins County Schools.
Yes. Or did you want the word?
Hawkins County School System is.
Okay. So, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Charles,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Shedden,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Okay, we came down a very, very long road and we're going up a new one. Forward, at this time, we'll send this to the county commission for their consideration. Am I correct in that? And the only part the county commission will have in this would be A1. That's all.
And my understanding, Mr. Christian, is that the county commission will be presenting considering a plan for relocation of the equipment that is currently still under loan at those two school sites.
Okay.
And that plan is what goes to the commission, but the decision to close a school is the Board of Education's decision.
All right, moving forward, I want to make this statement that we will be meeting with Mr. Brewer at some time in the future. We will be scheduling public meetings. As we move forward with our zoning and routing studies, we would still want to have interaction with our citizens. Is there any new business before the board? New business. Approval of purchases over $5,000. I can read those or I will accept a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Have a motion, this is for 1 and 2.
Okay.
I'll
Have a
second.
motion. Debbie, gave us a second. Any further discussion? If none, Mr. Jennifer, call the roll.
Trent,
Yes.
Tatum,
Yes.
Larkins,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Craddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
That concludes our agenda items, but I want to just make some notes here. Ms. Jennifer, can you give us some dates of our next board meeting, our budget meeting, and athletic committee meeting?
Our athletic committee meeting is Tuesday, May 12th at 6 o'clock. Our budget workshop has now been moved to Thursday, May the 14th at 6 o'clock. And our next regular monthly board meeting is June the 4th.
Just FYI, we did vote prior to the virus outbreak that we were not going to meet in July. We may need to revisit that at our June meeting. Barring, there might be some housekeeping issues we may need to take care of. Or multiple meetings in June. I would like to ask every board member if they can attend the athletic committee meeting. There's going to be some pertinent information presented. If you can, all board members, I'd like for you to be present. One more thing, we're in the process of developing our director's evaluation. And we will be looking at that probably in June for approval. But if any board members would like to have any input on what types of questions or what criteria you would like to score the superintendent on, please contact me or send it to Ms. Jennifer or me. With that being said, yes.
Ms. Farmer and I have been working on the budget, and I know you all wanted something to look at before, so we're gonna try to get that to you before Thursday.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there anything else before this board? If not, thank you, board. We're adjourned.
Okay, just to summarize what happened, the board voted 6-1 to go ahead and close Keplar and McPheeters Bend at the end of the 2020-2021 school year, and the no vote came from Judy Trent, and then there was some other motions included in that. One of them was to do a county-wide busing study. As for graduation, Mr. Hickson addressed that at the beginning of the meeting. Earlier this week, he pointed out that, or he issued a plan for graduation at both all three high schools actually, and I won't go over the details of that, but it was social distancing conscious. There was going to be small groups allowed in the gym, and then other groups in line out in the parking lot in their vehicles before waiting to go on stage, and so the graduate could get their diploma. And apparently he received some negative response from that, and so there's going to be a meeting with the student council leadership from all the schools on Monday, and they're going to revise the plan. So other than that, I got to do some writing, so I'm going to sign off, and there'll be more details in the paper tomorrow.